Dear branches, I want to communicate with you for fax treatments, not let. And I want to donate it for a gaming system, but I want it to have no persuasions, especially no criminal persuasions. I want it to, especially no criminally legalized persuasions. There are proofs that there are criminally legalized persuasions, in that those that were here since before our founding, that the branches failed not by accident, being victim, only let trained realize to the self-defense of nature's logic that then have to defend themselves, relying upon other experts. So we have expert lean, and it's not being used as facts. It's not being used as real facts. And this is anticipated and used with natures in relationship to the extortion of people's opinion natures, top to bottom and bottom up, and with all bodies of value in relationship to the law, which is in a juxtaposition with every science, demonstrably failed, and demonstrably how in relationship to our language and our treatments of facts. In other words, we could have a greater standards. We have forced opinion natures, blocking finite and overall truths, and forcing lies and delusions into branches. Yeah, that's what America was about. This. So, in other words, to fund it, in other words, like for Hartford, Connecticut, in other cities, in every, they all own their own cities. Part of it, and part of the game shares that value, and then I just keep inventing. We make it. This is a method of law. There's a training, the only weapon, the only point. There's only one point that does hurt. It's not one. There's only one. There are only weapons by that hurt not one. In that fight through forced lies, which is the problem of colonization, deeper than colonization. Colonization is just what's shared by nations that had wars that they could explain, but the nature of their own extortion, they only let realize legal natures of nations, colonial nations, which were animal, you know what I mean, and which were multi-front as well, high guys, evil, internation, you know what I mean, and this was because of a method that knew organized crime method. The devil most probably is an organized crime method. That's what in cipher. Why would it have to be in cipher, not directly stated, but with and what how it is directly stated? Because it has to be, because they knew they didn't have control already. Human education, the sciences, internation science was already criminally controlled. Human nature was already criminally controlled because original ancient revelations were already criminally re-engineered to be exploited. What happens when you re-engineer someone's education? You re-engineer their nature. You know what I'm saying? You re-engineer the nature of people around them. Everyone gets hurt. Then everyone has to make convictions about how to counter that, because these are time impositions as well. And there's methods and natures of organized crime that understood and understand this. Being not understood and having all kinds of different opinionations shared to the same shared to not ratiocination, but rationalization is needing to share lies to get away with them. That's why we have like for the media forcing um, that we just take faith wherever they say about social treatments. Like, in other words, you can't talk about people being poor without talking about specific people, because it makes other people feel bad about being poor. What happened to the war on poverty? You see, it's not even let of free speech nowadays. We went backwards in many ways because we didn't understand criminal insidiousness that is measuring not only us, but the leaders of the legal natures of all nations not understanding it. Only let train to the delusions that rationalize the way the sciences are interposition in relationship to needed scientific terms like evolution, because science can demonstrate what causes it, and this is ignored. Just like human standards, in other words, to show what held the standards and what really held, justifications. Everyone hurt conviction natures. I'm not saying I have to hurt people's feelings at all. This is scientific truth. People, in other words, that's an opinion, but it's someone has the right, but it's based on facts. In other words, there's many people who cry out and say, this is not good. We want help from poverty. They admit it. You know what I mean? And they want a voice, but they're being forced to have no voice because there are people pretending it's color. In other words, political movements pretending it's color, and they have that logic forced in pretending it's racism. So in other words, someone just because my skin doesn't have pigment, I can't ally with someone with all the people crying out for poverty who want human standards and law that says, okay, we lost on many fronts in the American Revolution, even if not to that extreme. To say, it has to be there. That's where we start America. We lost on many fronts of the revolution because, for example, we have to say that because of the nature of what our founders had to count their homeland already entrenched here. We have to understand the nature of James Madison, how he had they had to counter extort. Our founders were not free speech. They didn't have free speech. They were forced to theater, but that counter extortion had to come before the Boston Tea Party and all those narratives in Boston with the taxes and teaching and only let realized trained everyone believing that American Revolution was in relationship to taxes. That was with the political theater, not explained because we have the law self-defending other natures of law that cannot explain it properly. So they can't explain the American Revolution properly because they never explained it to them. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police, but so in other words, you have to explain the nature of organized crime that use terror laws with things like slavery for the long term, for today. So we'd be having these treatments. In other words, people are being forced not to be able to ally with the people crying out, saying, "Look, these human standards are no good." In other words, we knew they had terror laws with colonization, the force. Before we were a nation, before the United Cars, they had the infrastructural standards, and it mapped out how they were going to force the rest of the nation to have homes and little plots next to each other with houses, like little boxes, all the land denatured. Note that every year there's less, depends where you live, every year there's less worms on the ground because every year we're taking away all the stuff that will go back, not just to fertilize the surface value, life and growth, but the nature. Nature's going away. Our water, we have no clean freshwater fish. Even though we live under water, you don't have to take care of them. We don't have clean water because we're living under a political theater that was never explained, never realized in relationship to how we lost on many fronts with with American with the campuses, interscience, and geopolitical campuses, and with force shared policings with the nations like England. In other words, England had force shared policing relationships with the nations it was fighting at surface level too, because those nations' leaders were extorted just like the leaders of England, and just like the leaders over here, the chiefs too. First, they were tactically divided and conquered, and we can observe proofs of but we're not let. There's so many fronts with surface convictions and insidiously pretended passions being forced entertained. For example, in relationship to not letting people who are asking for a voice, people who are saying, okay, we're in poverty and we want help. You know what I'm saying? Countless people, but they're being forced to only be heard as a color speaking. You know, and And when I'm looking at them as the same value as me as a species, understanding too as a value of the earth, because we're correlation nature, we're only positive value one way. And when we're not that, negative value nature progressions demonstrate we're not that. And we are that. We are it three ways. And in conjunction with the nature beyond the three ways. This is a value nature relationship of unchanging positive space nature identity as the only unchanging space nature positive value, as only unchanging value. All values have particular identities. In demonstration of this one identity inherent to all temporary value nature, because this is coming through temporary value nature. Be, with consciousness only being semi-nature of it, being a correlation nature to remain positive or negative value nature, depending on the difference being if value nature inherent to consciousness is valued or not. This is demonstrably, for example, in particular, the revelation that was of the ancients that was the other sciences were criminally re-engineered to perpetuate us, obfuscated from understanding. In other words, so no one understands it. Nature inherent to consciousness is its own value nature system. This is the tree of life. This is in other words, now we have value nature system. The whole earth denatured. We're relying upon shared force markets positions with industry and with its policing natures to all different kinds of industries, and with the time impositions of that as retreat natures. What's that mean? That means in founding, there's only so much our founders could do to counter what was a terror database relationship, foreign database terror method to all areas, to keep the humanity here perpetually under control with terror juxtapositions of the law, of medicine, of the other sciences, and with international crime groups and terror fronts and stayed time impositions, terror imposition to time, and just meant in education, everything was so human nature was tactically re-engineered. Those terror laws are what made slavery, not color. No one wanted slavery. No one wanted that education. No one wanted that. Native Americans didn't want. They demonstrably. It is more probable if we had the sciences honestly received. It is probable to understand criminal insidiousness in their roles with multi-front illusions through time, per the methods of the natures of the organized crime with these terror laws. These were methods for long term to stay database. It doesn't need it didn't need, and it still doesn't need. Now it's even easier for it with computer databases, but didn't even need it back then. And it was with the first computer databases, because this has always stayed beyond the sophistication of the nature of logic, even of our legal natures. That's what this interscience nature method did. So that's the only thing that justifies the law that justified standards on New York and on cities throughout this nation so long. It's a multi-front legal treatments in conjunction with natures of business that just lie for legal nature. Everyone's hurt in different nature in relationship to facts, treatments, in relationship to what really held standards so long for millions of people, and it's got nothing to do with money. We have to figure out how to change the value nature system, because there's only one that's actively in demonstration to us, and it's actively only going to progress negative value nature progressions. That's why we're spending all this money on space and in the environment. We don't even have sciences that can admit the proofs, which are many, not just extinctions of animals, but of environmental problems. We denatured a method, a natural system. That's why there's less worms. There's all we denatured the earth. That's why they did this too tactically. the Mashantucket Pequot Native Tribal Museum in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, but it's on the Rhode Island border too. So it's like a great place to go. But I'm doing advertisement for them because I want the museum understood. They remember about clam beds being destroyed. They remember about hundreds of acres of woods being burned. I don't know if they remember. They probably used pigs too, because pigs, they throw them off the boat if they swim in, and they're like an army. They just denature the whole landscape. So my idea is to have a pamphlet, all kinds of ways we fund this game for New York and for every city. We train, we learn, and we force the law claimed higher, standards higher. That's it.